What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today is February 1st, 2025. The year is flying by already. Look, January is over. So what I want to do today is I want to show you guys how many dividends I've made in the month of January 2025. And I also want to compare it to what I made back in 2024 and just show you guys the progression so that you guys get a visual of what I got going on over here. So before we jump into the video, let me just show you guys the portfolio. The portfolio is down a little bit. If you guys remember, in my last video, I was above 90,000 in total value, but it's okay because the market has pulled back a little bit, but it's a healthy pullback, right? It's an opportunity to get into good positions in order to be successful and in order to generate monthly income. So I actually made a couple changes here, right? I still have 1,000 shares of AIPI, 1,000 shares of MSTY, and 700 shares of MVDY. Now you'll notice I got rid of RDTE and I took that money and I added it into MVDY. Why did I do that? Well, the reason I did that is because I feel like looking at my portfolio, RDTE did not really fit within my portfolio. And so what I wanted to do was concentrate my positions and go ahead and get MVDY up to 1,000 shares. So that is my next goal, is to get MVDY up to 1,000 shares. And then I plan on moving on to the next asset. I have a couple different dividend ETFs on my watch list, so I'm not quite sure exactly which one I'm going to add after I get 1,000 shares of MVDY. But when we get there, we'll get there, and I'll make a game time decision and figure out what fits best in my portfolio. So again, I sold RDTE. I now have 700 shares of MVDY. I also took it as an opportunity to lower my cost basis on MVDY, right? Before, my cost basis was in the $22 range. And so with the recent pullback in the market, I was able to dollar cost average and get this cost basis down as well. So it's kind of worked out. I think my dividend income will continue to increase from here. And again, I'm going to continue to buy NVDY until I reach 1,000 shares. Now, if you guys don't know, I have tapped into some margin. So when you see my portfolio at this very moment, according to my brokerage, I have about $80,000 in equity and I have about $8,600 in margin. So I do use a bit of margin. I've talked about margin in other videos as well. I do have a lot more margin available to me, but I tend to be a bit conservative with my margin. And so I'm only using about $8,600 at the moment, and the rest of the money, about $80,000, is equity. And so I just wanted to give you guys that right there, just so you guys can kind of know how my portfolio is structured. But let's get into the dividends, right? So for January of 2025, I made a total of $4,447 in dividends, right? So we'll see. The first payment I got was January 3rd from RDTE, about $59. January 6th, I got $89 from NVDY. January 10th, I got $41 from RDTE. January 17th, I got $75 from RDTE. January 17th, I got $2,200 from Misty. This was my biggest payment of the month. Of course, as we all know, MicroStrategy or Misty pays heavy dividends. And so this was a nice chunk, right? This makes up about half of my monthly dividends. And then the following week, January 24th, RDTE paid me $40. That was my final RDTE payment because I did sell out of that position not shortly after this. And January 30th, I received $1,400 from AIPI, which I love AIPI from Rex Shares. I feel like they have a couple good ETFs over there. They have AIPI, they have FEPI, they have CEPI, and these have been pretty consistent, at least FEPI and AIPI. CEPI is a bit newer, but these have been very consistent. The share price does not fluctuate much, and so it's pretty predictable income, and I feel like it gives your portfolio that strong foundation when you're trying to build out an income cash flow portfolio. So again, AIPI paid $1,400, and January 1st, MVDY paid $414. Now, they paid about 83 cents a share this month. And with this dividend, so what I did was I sold out of RDTE, and then I waited. When the market first pulled back, I think I added like 100 or 200 shares to my MVDY position, and then I waited till ex-dividend date so that the share price could drop a bit more once the dividend was extracted from the share price. And then I added more shares of MVDY, which got me to 700. But I believe for this January 31st payment, I was only paid for about maybe 400 or 500 I think about 500 shares of MVDY, because again, I added another couple hundred shares on the ex-dividend date. And so I will get paid for those 700 shares, but that will be in February. So yeah, again, total $4,447 in total dividends for the month of January 2025. Now, I want to show you guys this chart, right? So this is the progression of 2024 with my monthly dividends. Right here, you can see there was a really big spike in October of 2024, and I'm going to explain that shortly here. But basically what's going on here is you can notice in January of 2024, I made $415 in dividends, right? That's a lot lower than what I made January of 2025. Now, here's the thing. My portfolio was obviously smaller, but I wasn't so heavy into high yield dividends at this time. I had a lot of closed end funds. I had REITs. I had dividend growth stocks. I had maybe a couple high yield funds, but nothing crazy at this time. And so my portfolio was yielding a lower amount, right? So, but if we move on past the months, we can see the progression. And then I want to say around March is when I started to adapt a more income cash flow mindset as far as for this particular portfolio. And so you can see that the dividend income almost doubled here, right? From 700 to 1100, or close to doubled. But there was a noticeable jump here, right? We went from $700 to over $1,000. And since then, I've never made less than $1,000 in any month on dividends. And what I basically did is I adapted this high yield mindset while also having some diversification, right? Putting it into a few different assets and trying to acquire as many shares as possible, and then using those dividends to reinvest back into the portfolio, and then also make my own contributions just from my 9-to-5 job, right? Every time I get paid, I try to put a certain amount of dollars into my portfolio, or whatever I'm able to put in there at the time. And then again, I've tapped into a bit of margin as well. Like I told you guys earlier, about $8,600 worth of margin. And so I'm using margin as leverage to acquire more shares. I'm using the monthly dividend cash flow to reinvest back into the portfolio. And I'm putting my own contributions in from my paycheck in order to really fast track this portfolio and accelerate the growth and accelerate the cash flow. So again, I just wanted to show you guys this progression here, right? So I do want to talk about this month right here. I know it looks a little crazy. The chart is kind of progressively going up, and then there's a huge spike here. But I wouldn't worry too much about this. Basically what happened in October of 2024 is I made a couple trades on margin, and this is when I first started kind of tapping into margin. And what I did is I made a couple trades on Misty. I also made a couple trades on, I believe, MicroStrategy, the stock itself, not Misty, but MSTR. And I made a couple other trades as well. And then I put a lot of money into YMAX as well. At one point, I actually had like 1,500 shares of YMAX, and I was just like harvesting the dividend yield, but I was using a lot of leverage at that point, a lot of margin, hence, the spike in dividends. But then what I realized shortly was, margin is good to use, as leverage, but I wanted to make sure that my equity was always majority of my portfolio. I personally, ideally I would like to keep my equity anywhere from 80% or above, meaning that minimum 80% of my total portfolio is actually my money or equity. And so that's why right now about $80,000 of my portfolio is equity, and about the other $8,000 is margin. So I hope that makes sense. Again, this month was kind of a fluke because I was using so much margin in order to acquire shares. And then once I received this income, it was cool and it looked good on paper and it looked cool on my brokerage account. But then when I also saw that negative number, that margin balance, I was like, is it really worth it? So what I did is I kind of switched my strategy up, and I look at it this way, right? I look at my dividends. I'm averaging over $4,000 a month now in dividends. If I keep my margin anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 a month, or $8,000 to $12,000 in margin balance, that means at any given time I can pay off my margin within 60 to 90 days without even making any contributions. I can just allow my dividends to hit my account and pay off that margin, and I would never really get into a margin call because I still have about $70,000 of margin at my disposal that I don't use. So I try to keep a really big buffer in my account. Again, some people may think I'm being conservative. Some people would love to use that money and leverage it to increase their dividend income. But again, at some point I want to actually use this dividend income, or at least supplement this dividend income in order to pay for bills and lifestyle. And so I always want to keep a buffer there and make it a point to where I can pay off those that margin balance in a reasonable time without having to sell any shares or have to panic if the market pulls back or anything like that. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. I probably kind of over-explained my strategy here, and some people may agree with it, some people may not. You guys let me know in the comments, but this is just my strategy. I think the bigger point I'm trying to make here is you have to find what works for you, and I would say chart it, right? Write it down on paper, put it on your computer, make some type of visual like this so that you can look back year to year and see your progression. I love looking at this chart because, again, the chart from left to right goes up, right, with the exception of this huge spike. But you guys get the point, right? It started at $415 a month, and in December I ended at $4,500 a month, right? And now kicking off January, I'm at $4,400 a month. And so you can see the progression from January of 2024 to January of 2025. So I feel like if you guys visualize it, write it down, put it in front of you, it gives you a bit more motivation to see where you came from as far as when you first started your portfolio to where you are now. And then you're really able to assess your portfolio and decide what is going to work best for you. So I think that's it for today's video, guys. Again, I just wanted to give you guys a breakdown of how many dividends I've received in January of 2025. But not only that, not only to show off my portfolio, but to also show you guys where it started as well, right? So I think I'm gonna implement this into the channel a bit more. It's just using visuals so that you guys can see what I have going on here, and maybe it'll give you some motivation. You guys let me know in the comments, what do you think, and what's your favorite dividend ETF right now, right? A lot of things are on sale, in my opinion. A lot of things are on sale. The market has been red for a couple days, but again, that's a good thing, right? That is a good thing. Overall, the S&P will continue to go up over the long term. And so during these temporary times where there's some waves in the ocean, right, it's a bit red, these are the times where you really got to jump in the market and really build out your portfolio and buy assets that generate cash flow at a discounted price, because NVDY right now is around $18-19 a share, but we've seen it touch $30 a share. So just imagine when Nvidia starts to go up again, whether it's a month from now, 6 months from now, or a year from now, and imagine this share price being back at 25, 28, 30, 32, right? So you don't want to miss an opportunity, right? We don't know what the market is going to do in the future, but what we can do is use the information that is in front of us and look up good companies, look up good assets, and then decide whether or not it's at a discounted price in order for you to build out your position, in order for you to be successful, so that you can generate this monthly cash flow. So again, you guys let me know in the comments, what is on your watch list? What are you buying? Are you dollar cost averaging into anything? Are you averaging down into anything? Are you about to start a new position because you've seen an opportunity in the market? You guys let me know in the comments. Another thing I want to talk about is we are over 1,000 subscribers. It's crazy. I really just started posting consistently in October of 2024. So, and it was around mid October of 2024. So it's really only been about 3 months now, about 3.5 months. And, I'm just super grateful. This channel I actually started in 2022, and I'll just give you guys a quick synopsis of what I did here. So basically, I started the channel back in 2022. I believe I started posting my first videos in earlier of 2024. You can see here, this is legit my first video I posted, and you can see the thumbnails are a lot different. I'm trying to be a bit more creative, but yeah, I posted about 5 videos, and then for about 7 months here, you see this was 10 months ago, this one is 3 months ago. For about 7 months I didn't post at all. And then what happened is I just got inspired again. I got motivated again. And I said, you know what? I have a YouTube channel. I only had about 50 subscribers when I dropped this video right here. And so I said, you know what? Let me see where I could take this thing. And so about 3 months ago, again in October, is when I started to post videos. And I'm trying to be as consistent as possible. And as you guys can see, I have, been posting videos pretty frequently. So again, as always, I really appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel, and I will catch you in the next video.